I feel like I should start this video by doing that really sincere YouTuber thing that people do where they'll sit down and go like, hey guys, hope everyone's well. This wasn't a video that I expected to make, but it's a video that I feel like I have to make. Not necessarily for me, but for lots of other people that aren't, I don't know, not even as big as me. And people that are bigger than me but don't meet this new criteria that's been set out for us. Just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to provide a little bit of context. Yesterday, YouTube sent out a mass email to hundreds of thousands of small channels like mine, and some that are bigger than me, some that are smaller than me, quite a lot bigger than me. I'm a very small channel, but whatever. It was semi-blackmaily. It essentially said, we are changing our monetization process to prevent misuse of the YouTube system and to protect the core values of YouTube, which raises many questions for me. But before we get into those, we should perhaps look at what that change actually is. And the change is essentially if you've got more than 1,000 subscribers and you get more than 4,000 hours watch time in a year, you are eligible for the YouTube Partnership Program, which they revoked from everyone who doesn't meet that threshold already. And what that essentially means is that you're allowed to monetize your videos, you're allowed to use all the Partnership Program features, like the end cards and all the other things that people use that make their videos look so much more professional and so much better and make them get more views. So to break it down into numbers that are slightly easier to understand with some very tenuous maths, if you upload a single 10-minute video onto YouTube, exactly 10 minutes long, to get 4,000 hours of watch time on that, you need to get 24,000 views, all at 100% watch time, to reach that 4,000 hour threshold. Now, again, that sounds kind of difficult to dissect, so with some more tenuous maths, I've dissected it a bit more for you. 24,000 views on a 10-minute video is about 658 minutes of watch time a day, which is about 13 hours a day. People need to be watching your stuff to be able to get 4,000 hours a year. Of course, there's lots of other variables, there's lots of different ways that number can be achieved. You could have one video that gets like 6 million views, and then obviously you're going to get 4,000 hours watch time. But not everyone's going to have that, because as it might seem, 13 hours a day is more than a successful TV show would have that's broadcast across an entire country at the same time, everywhere, with seemingly an unlimited viewer base. And you don't need me to say that for a lot of small creators this is completely unattainable. What might not be so obvious, however, is it's not just small creators with less than 1,000 subscribers that are going to be affected by this. I've seen channels with 40,000, 60,000, sometimes even 100,000 subscribers that aren't getting 4,000 hours watch time a year. For people like animators, that's going to completely drain any kind of resources they have, and they're not going to be able to put out enough content in that time to fill 4,000 hours that people can watch, unless they get some kind of freak viral hit, which I'm sure you're aware is essentially impossible. And it's going to prevent views for a different reason as well. I'm aware this is highly anecdotal, so feel free to disregard it if you want to, that's fine. But when I watch the kind of content that I watch, and I watch a lot of music related things, as you can probably tell from the other videos that I've put out, I implicitly trust a video that's got monetization features on it more than a video that doesn't. Now maybe that is because I'm some kind of secret capitalist shill, which would be a surprise to me if nothing else. But this is something that a lot of people, I think implicitly or kind of deep down without really realising it, also think. And this is going to be a real problem in the long term. As a bit of an example of how hard it is to reach this 4,000 hour watch time, my most successful video ever on this channel was uploaded on the 1st of November, I think, 2014, and is my Black Star Fly 3 video. Now that video is 4 minutes 31 seconds long and has about 48,000 views. Now if you remember, a 10-minute video needs 24,000, so a 5-minute video needs 48,000 views to get to the 4,000 hour mark. Except it got those 48,000 views over 3 years, and It's not 5 minutes long, it's 4 minutes 31. And that 29-second difference times 48,000 is a lot of time that will make a huge difference. This is probably a good time to mention that this count for 4,000 hours is cumulative. So, if you upload a 10-minute video every single day, the stress on you is lessened to get that 4,000 hour watch time. You could put 12,000 10-minute videos out in 1 year, and as long as they all get 2 views, you'd be fine. The content would be terrible if you put 12,000 videos out in a year, but whatever, that's not the point. And I've seen a lot of people saying that, hey, it shouldn't be about the money, it should be about doing it for the love of making videos for YouTube, and don't get me wrong, I agree with that. But the problem is, people need the kind of high production values that only revenue can bring you. People need to be able to afford, you know, the best cameras, the best mics, the best lighting systems, the best editing crew, whatever else. And unless you have enough revenue to bring that in, that's just not something that can be achieved. Without this revenue, you can't invest in your project and you can't improve your project. And at least to me, I can really see it driving away thousands of new people who are just going to be too discouraged to get involved in anything. Now, I got into a bit of a discussion with a slightly larger channel than me about this on Twitter. The person that I got into a discussion with had about 30,000 subscribers, so quite a lot bigger than me, and he was defending this policy by using the excuse that he was able to invest the money that he'd made from AdSense to improve his content. But that outlines the problem perfectly. I was able to invest the money that I made from AdSense back into my channel. How can you do that if you don't have access to the partnership program and anything else that comes along with it? Okay, fine, so I'll put my commercial awareness cap on for a second. YouTube is a business. I'm not overly romanticizing it, I don't think. They have to protect their business, and if that means that they have to take some kind of measure which will affect people negatively, but it saves them in the long run, I wouldn't be happy about it, obviously, because it'd affect me, but I could see the logic behind it. I don't see the logic behind this move, because all they're doing is killing off the future to save the present. There's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of really small channels like mine and some that are bigger that are all making about, $3 a year or something, which isn't that much per channel. But take that $3, times it by a couple 100,000, that's a lot of money that's not being paid out. And okay, I have seen people that have quite rightly said that to get any money out of the AdSense account that you have with YouTube under your partnership program, you have to make $60 a year before they'll release it to you. And that's true, that is entirely correct. However, people had the chance to try and earn that $60 now. If you're taking away the partnership program, they don't have that opportunity anymore. This money's going to be sat in YouTube's account, never being released to the people that actually earned it. Who's it being spent on instead? Is it going to someone who was removed from the top tier of ads after filming a dead body in a suicide forest and pretending it wasn't a big deal until the collective outrage, a week later, when YouTube put out this really weakly worded statement and then did basically nothing to stop it? And this is where I don't understand where this change has come from, if we're looking at it from this kind of angle. Because protecting the core values of YouTube is something that I'd like to think I support, but not when those core values are so flagrantly broken by people big enough to get away with it, who YouTube's too scared to deal with. I don't need to tell you that the whole suicide forest video was completely unacceptable, because of course it was. But it was reviewed by a human being at YouTube who said it was completely acceptable and that it should go on the trending page, and I find it very hard to trust someone who has that kind of attitude towards their video content, that just because someone's big enough, it doesn't matter whether they follow the rules or not. There's another way of looking at this though, which is probably more accurate, and that's that this change in the partnership program is a response to the first adpocalypse, where advertisers pulled out because they didn't want their adverts to be run before extremist content, which I can support, that makes sense. And there's also the Elsagate scandal, which I've really not wanted to mention because it's just kind of horrible. But that, don't get me wrong, that's a completely awful, awful thing that should never be on this website. But taking away advertising rights from these things doesn't stop them existing. What happens when this channel gets 1,000 subscribers and meets that 4,000 hour threshold? Nothing. It's just going to get partnered, and it's going to proceed like nothing ever happened. It doesn't change anything, at least from what I can tell. If they're going to spend more time reviewing the partnership applications, okay, maybe that could work. But then, we've seen the kind of people that monitor these kind of things. We've seen a video that was universally condemned, accepted by a human reviewer at YouTube who thought it was so good that they put it on the trending page. And I just find it very hard to trust people that will have that kind of attitude towards things. And it doesn't even address the people that caused the adpocalypse in the first place. What happens to them with more than 1,000 subscribers and more than 4,000 hours watch time? Absolutely nothing. Now, I have seen a lot of people on Twitter and elsewhere talking to me that have said, alongside this change to the partnership program, YouTube is going to start manually reviewing the larger channels for this kind of content that goes against their core values kind of more stringently. And again, I would love to believe that's enough. I really, really would. That they could just hire someone to check these things over, and then once it's deemed acceptable, it goes out. There's no problems. That would be fantastic. But again, we've seen the kind of people that review these videos. They don't care whether it's acceptable or not. Now, this leads me on to some questions for YouTube that I know are never going to get answered, but I feel I have to ask anyway. And I've made some notes, so forgive me for just reading these out, but I want to say them right and not misquote myself and end up ruining this. So first question for YouTube. Why do you seem so content to kill the future of the YouTube to save the present? What happens when the people that are megastars now stop making videos? What happens when the people that are megastars now lose their audience? What happens when the tweens that watch these people get bored and move on? And I know that happens because I do it all the time. There were people that I used to follow religiously when I first started watching YouTube regularly. I've completely lost interest in them now because it's the same thing every single video. Eventually, people are going to get bored of it. This is just a fact. What happens then? So second question. After the present stops creating or the audience gets bored and moves elsewhere, who's going to replace these people? And why should they have any reason to trust you when you've kicked them before they've even started? Why should these people feel any loyalty towards a program that doesn't care about them? Number 4, how does this stop any kind of inappropriate content being uploaded? It's the YouTube megastars that are pushing the worst of this. And you know it's the YouTube megastars that are pushing the worst of this because it's been all over every major news outlet for the past 2 weeks. But they're immune from this, if not actively protected by it. Shouldn't there be some kind of increased moderation for them first to see what kind of trends could be prevented from happening if you were to review them? They're called influencers. They have influence. Stopping them from using that influence for negative purposes could surely only be the right thing to do here. And okay, yes, I completely agree that there will always be people that will abuse the systems. There will always be people that misuse their privilege. It's not a right, it's a privilege of uploading videos onto YouTube, and they will upload the most awful kind of content. That needs to be taken down, I completely agree. But they're doing it because they've been told it's okay by the people that are higher up than them with 15 million subscribers plus. And lastly, do you really want the YouTube brand to say, unless you're already famous and have built a platform and a huge following elsewhere, go away, we don't care about you? Now, I'm aware that in this last point I'm essentially talking about fame, and don't get me wrong, not everyone can be a superstar. I totally understand that. But the point of YouTube was that anyone could try. And if you're taking away that choice for so many people, I struggle to see how people are going to want to bother even trying. Please don't misunderstand me. People will continue to make YouTube videos as a labour of love. I totally will. This is something that I really enjoy doing, even if I can't dedicate as much time to it as I want to. People will always be making videos, but so many people will be driven away by not having the kind of options that they have right now. If people are forced to just put out video after video after video after video where they're getting nothing out of it, and YouTube itself doesn't care about them and is openly saying it doesn't care about them to the point that they're not even allowed to use an end card, why would they bother? YouTube is going to miss so many opportunities for people that would have otherwise had a chance to make the kind of content that YouTube really needs to see more of. So many people are going to be driven away by this, and they will build platforms elsewhere. I'm fully aware that YouTube is owned by Google, so if it's elsewhere on Google, it doesn't really affect YouTube because they're the same company at this point. Whatever, they will find somewhere that's separate from this monopoly. They will build a following, and you won't have any kind of reach into it, any influence over it, nothing. People will do that, you will lose out. And the last thing that I want to see is YouTube negatively affected by a lack of people joining in. The entire point is that this is a community that works together and continues to share content between itself that will only ever get bigger. This move's going to make it a lot smaller. This move's going to take away so many opportunities. And if YouTube's prepared to lose out on those opportunities, fine, they've done what they need to do. But what if one of the people they drive away is going to be huge somewhere? I'm not sure what else I can say on this topic. I think I'm just starting to repeat myself. The changes to the YouTube Partnership Program are a terrible idea. The 4,000 hour watch time goal is unattainable to most people. What are most people going to do if they're actively driven away by this kind of measure? If they're actively told, we don't care about you, people are going to stop. And I don't want this. YouTube doesn't want this. No one wants this. I'm not necessarily calling for a complete abandonment of this change of policy. I understand why they might want to do it. I understand wanting to stop inappropriate content being put on the website. That makes complete 100% sense. I completely agree with that. But they should perhaps consider whether it's worth looking at those goalposts somewhat. 1,000 subscribers, maybe that's reasonable. Maybe that's achievable. That might be fine. 4,000 hours watch time, 13 hours a day watch time all year just seems unrealistically high and meant to stop everyone but the megastars who already have that base pre-installed from getting anywhere. But what do you think? Because I've rambled now for however long this is going to be. I'm not sure. I've not had much input apart from the people that I've already spoken to on Twitter yesterday. I'll drop a link to that Twitter conversation in the description to this video actually, because if you have Twitter, get involved. If not, drop a comment in the comment section of this video, and I want to open up a dialogue with you. I want to talk with other people that are affected by this to work out what we think as a community would be the best answer. I don't have all the answers, but I want to be able to reach a conclusion that works for everyone as part of a team. If you got this far into my ramblings, thank you for bearing with it. I'm not sure how coherent it is. If this is terrible, I'll just not upload it. Thank you, and I will see you for something a bit more fun next time very soon.